Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest, reacting to the Toronto Raptors 117-109 win against the Denver Nuggets. Ryker, the Toronto Raptors are now 7-1. Obviously the deep bench ran in this game, but you weren't able to catch most of this game, but still, really exciting win for the Raptors.
Yeah, working. Hopefully the playoff game, well actually, you know what? The playoff games, they can be whatever time they want because the basketball it's gonna fit in there, even if work conflicts, they'll have to make up those hours somehow. Basketball is life. And Ben, who would have thought? I mean, we are the biggest Raptors homers possible. Sometimes we speak to as objectively as possible, but I don't think either of us expected a 7-1 record, maybe a 6-2, and maybe pessimistically 5-3, but 7-1, Ben, pretty incredible.
Yeah, no, it's been a remarkable stretch for this Toronto Raptors team across the bubble, and you mentioned it. From the top down, the whole squad just came out ready to go in this bubble, and one guy that's really come on as of late, we've been talking about him in the past couple of podcasts, Ryker, Stanley Johnson tonight. He had a breakout performance for his Toronto Raptors career. 23 points for him, 6 assists, 4 rebounds. Went 4 of 8 from the 3-point line, 9 of 16 from the field. But he was slashing. He was knocking down his threes, his tight handles. I said it on a couple of pods ago when in a game he struggled. He looks really pretty out there. He looks really smooth. And tonight, the smoothness translated into effectiveness, and he hit a game winner in the last game, Ryker, and he did have a few turnovers, 5 turnovers for the game in 30 minutes, but if Stanley Johnson, with his size and his ability to ball handle, all that sort of stuff, the intangibles are there. If he's able to do this consistently, do you think he could maybe squeak into the rotation, get a couple minutes during this playoff run?
Not even a slight remote chance, Ben. And when you say he looks pretty, are you talking Kelly Oubre pretty or just his basketball technique pretty?
Well, both.
I think this is my assessment. I don't want to make it too weird.
He's a good-looking guy.
Oh, we're going to get called out for that in the comments. This is my assessment of Stanley Johnson. It sucks because we literally criticized the heck out of this guy. We really bagged into him. So maybe he heard.
Did.
And
everyone
maybe
did.
Everyone did, yeah. But now it makes us seem a little foolish that he had 2 good games, was it? He played all right the last game as well. But it makes sense in a way. It does make sense because you're playing against the least talented defense that you would go up against, right? You're playing against the other team's deep bench. He does clearly have confidence when he goes out there. He plays a little bit out of control from what we've seen during the bubble, but if he can slow the game down in his head, he does have the technique to support it. And we said this last time too. Physically, he has incredible size for his position. So I don't think there's no chance he's going to get any run this playoffs. But I think if he did stick around for one more season, he could actually end up becoming some sort of, not a rotational piece necessarily, but if he actually worked on his game with our amazing development staff, then I think he could become a player in the NBA again.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with you on the playoff position. I don't think we'd have to have some serious injuries to really see him get an opportunity, but who knows, maybe we're struggling in the second round or something, and we need someone to really come in and switch it up, and he's playing well these past couple games, but you hit the nail on the head right there. And Stanley Johnson, when he's playing under control, because especially in the first few games of the bubble, it just seemed like he couldn't dribble the basketball. It was flying all over the place. He rushed his shots. They were going off the side of the backboard, but tonight, his drives looked completely under control. He's so strong. People just bounce off him. There was a couple. Yeah, he did elbow a guy in the head once. Got a flagrant foul in this game, but a couple times got called for a couple offensive fouls that were just weird because people were bouncing off him. But he looked under control in this one, aside for a couple of those plays. But his finishing around the rim, he has a nice touch. The threes, he was hitting them from deep, not rushing, not forcing up any jumpers. Had a heat check here or there, but I was really impressed with the game from Stanley Johnson. And yeah, he's under contract with the Toronto Raptors next season, so I can really see him becoming I go further than you. I could see him becoming a rotation piece depending on what the roster looks like, and
yeah, that's
and if he continues to play like this, maybe that 2021 max contract slot that we're saving up for will go to him.
So listen, let's not even go down that path, Ben. But there's two things that are popping off the box or the box score for me here. pick which one you want to talk about, both, obviously, but whichever one you want to start with. One, you'd think Terrence Davis playing the most minutes this game, this should be his opportunity to really get out there, get some legs under him. He's trying to make a spot for himself in the playoffs. Didn't look like he showed out tonight. Maybe his shooting is a little bit deceiving. I didn't have the benefit of the eye test here. I didn't see this game. And then the second thing is, he doesn't even have a picture on the NBA app that I'm looking at. Paul Watson, I guess I need to commit him to memory because he's coming up a lot lately. Looks like he had an outpouring. So I don't know. Do you take it away, Ben? Let's hear about these two fellas.
Well, we're bringing up Paul Watson, Ryker. I cannot take this forgetfulness from you with Paul Watson. We brought it up multiple times on the podcast who this guy is. He's shown out in a lot of late games, and you just don't remember who the guy is. Paul Watson came to play tonight. Looked like a mixture of LeBron James and Kevin Durant, knocking down threes left, right, and center, whether they were contested or not. Had a couple ferocious dunks, 22 points, 6 rebounds, a couple of assists. A really strong game from Paul Watson. We'll talk about TD after, but Paul Watson's a guy, Ryker, we can't take this slander anymore. He's got some size for a wing position. He's able to knock down the three, and Matt Devlin kept talking about it. He's down a whole. Oh no, that's Malcolm Miller. Forget that point. But but Paul Watson, he really showed out in this game.
Well, he's an intriguing guy because he's very much under the radar, and we haven't seen a lot of the deep bench, I think, throughout the season because the actual bench is pretty new to the Raptors as well. Whereas before, our actual bench is pretty solidified group of NBA guys. Whereas this season, we have so many up-and-comers that you just come to expect them all to play well, right? So oftentimes they're dominating the narrative, but could you see Paul Watson as being a guy that sticks around? You mentioned Malcolm Miller. He's a guy that's been on the Raptors seemingly for ages and has never been able to progress on to crack any significant minutes, right? But it seems like he goes out there and does the right things. But in watching Paul Watson play, do you think that this is a guy that could actually elevate beyond just the deep bench minutes? Like next season, could he become a real player as well?
Well, the interesting thing about Paul Watson is the Raptors love to sign guys in their deep bench that can knock down the threes. As you've said, we've had Malcolm Miller on the deep bench for a while. We've had guys like Jordan Lloyd on that roster. Shamori Pons is the guy that Watson replaced this season. But those are the type of guys Masai likes to have on that roster. People that can shoot threes. But none of them tend to stick around because the two things that you need to be a Toronto Raptor to crack the rotation need to be able to shoot threes with some minor exceptions like Rondé or some different people. But you also need to play remarkable defense. And that's the reason Rondé is in the rotation. He's still a fringe member of that. But Paul Watson's got the size. He has the length. He seems pretty mobile out there on the defensive end. He seems really athletic. Showed out with a couple of really nice dunks in this one. During the regular season, I remember he had a couple pretty ferocious blocks. So he seems like a guy that can guard out there. Obviously, it's a small sample size, but clearly he can knock down the three. He's shown a decent ball handling skill. Obviously, it all needs to sort of come together, and I'm sure Nick Nurse sees him in practice, and if he was shown out like this, he'd get more of an opportunity during the regular season. But I don't know, he's another guy like Stanley Johnson. All the intangibles seen there to really obviously not crack the rotation during the playoffs when the big games matter, but I could see him sticking around and maybe being one of those bench guys that enter into the conversation the coming years.
Yeah, and it's to crack the rotation, and I think the only exception to this is Matt Thomas because of how incredible shooting he is. He can just get shots up even with somebody glued to his hip. Everybody else, defense. And a lot of the guys in the Raptors, they're hustle players. They'll hoist up their threes. They have athleticism, but that doesn't guarantee you're going to be a good defender. Raptors, they're among the best defenses in the NBA, and they're specifically among the best three-point defenders in the NBA. And to do that, that's not man-to-man coverage. You can shut down one three-point shooter, but usually what ends up happening is all these off-ball screens, you need to have terrific communication as a unit. You need to be able to operate as a five-man defense, and that requires IQ. And that's the reason we see a lot of the deep bench guys, they don't shift up, is either because they don't have the ability to play 5-man defense. They might be good at shooting, they might have athleticism on its own, but if you're able to go in and show that you can put up a couple points and play team defense, then there is a potential future there on the Toronto Raptors.
Yeah, for sure. And those are the two guys that really had big games off the bench tonight. Boucher had another solid one, 9 points, 9 rebounds. Nothing too exciting from Boucher. Malcolm Miller, as you mentioned, he's a knockdown shooter. He's a stroker. He can come out and hit the threes, but 10 points for him, 2 or 3 shooting. Nothing else that really catches you off guard. Duan Hernandez, he's kind of a guy we didn't see much of in the regular season due to injury, but he had a couple nice floaters, got blocked a lot underneath the rim, but 7 rebounds. The bench not too exciting, but Terrence Davis I think is a guy we got to bring up because he's a guy that was the guy that you and I picked to probably be that 8th man, especially when McCaw went down, but he's really struggled in the bubble, and as you mentioned, his field goal percentage was really poor tonight, but he did hit a couple threes, which is nice to see, a little step back at one point in this game. 14 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. I don't know if it was necessarily a positive game from TD. He got hit in the eye at 1.2, and he returned to the game. It might have looked like he scratched his cornea or something, but it seemed fine. But I don't know. It still wasn't the most encouraging game from TD, but it could be one of those step games that sort of break you out of a slump, and then he can come in, maybe get some run against Brooklyn, and then see what happens.
You think so? 15 shots in 34 minutes, and you're not making them at a very high volume. Like, to me, it doesn't breathe a lot of confidence. Would you say this, Ben? Because sorry to cut you off, but you said it. Both of us had him pegged as being the most likely 8th guy to come off the bench. But Matt Thomas has made a case for himself. Chris Boucher has made a case for himself. Who was there a 4th person that was fighting for it? Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. He's kind of a maybe. But would you say that it's now most likely that Terrence Davis is at the bottom of the list to make that 8th man? Like, were we completely wrong?
Honestly, it might be. He's really struggled out there, and I'm hoping this is a game because he had a couple of those patented TD2 or TD step back shots, that are nice to see. But I don't know. If he continues to play at this, not knocking down shots, not looking that confident, I just don't see him, especially with his size, coming off the bench. And we have Fred and Kyle that can run the point and run that sort of position. Norman Powell's obviously going to be there. I honestly, the way that the past games have gone, Matt Thomas, he's done solid, but obviously he needs to add a bit more to his game to really become more well-rounded, or he needs to get better at getting open threes. But I think it might be Chris Boucher. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson's probably going to be the guy, but I'd like to see Chris Boucher maybe get that first crack at being the 8th man. Again, 9 points, 9 rebounds tonight. Does a really solid job at blocking shots, getting those boards. But I don't know. His size and his ability to shoot the 3 gives him the edge in my perspective over Rondae.
I like his game, and we are pretty stacked. If we can keep the guards healthy, and I say if the guards stay healthy on the Toronto Raptors, like you said,
you and I are going
to... if you and I can
come down to the bubble.
Health and safety into the guards of the Toronto Raptors, then I think that it's probably more beneficial to give a guy like Boucher run, especially if he's able to do the work of guards, i.e. 3-point shooting and creating a little bit of offense and just being an X factor or dark horse out there when when there's a lot of focus on the bigger name players. If you're able to be the next man up, I think it makes sense that Boucher could get run. And it's not very often that we're completely off the mark, but I think we need to humbly admit that Terrence Davis, he probably has slipped in the rankings to get some run, which is surprising how well he did throughout the whole season. So that's it. It just goes to show,
sure.
You need to be ready to play, and anything can happen.
Yeah, I did say I thought McCall would be that guy, but I guess that's to the furthest off the mark because he's not even playing right now. But TD was the person I wanted. But I don't know. No, Norman Powell, we're 14 minutes in. Norman Powell also had a really solid game, 15 points, 6 rebounds. He was the best player on the court for most of this game, the most talented guy out there. So what you'd expect from Norman Powell. Nice to see him hit a couple shots. But tonight, let's swing into the segments, Ryker. We'll fly through these. Tonight, the spicy Pele of the day. It's got to go to Stanley Johnson, just hitting some threes, hitting some heat check threes with guys in his face. It was just crazy to see Stanley Johnson have a complete turnaround, a 180 of his performance, and have such a big night tonight.
Ben, to get the DeMarre Gold Star, and only a couple of days ago to now get the spicy Pele. He's doing something right.
Yeah, back-to-back spicy PLAs of the day because he hit that game winner in the last one. So shout out Stanley Johnson. Powell Watson also gets some credit here from the spicy PLAs of the day with all of the threes he was knocking down. But not all plays can be the spicy PLA of the day, and some just make you say, oh, geez. And I alluded to this earlier, but Duan Hernandez was underneath the rim. Honestly, Duan and Ronde, both of them had stretches in this where I feel like there was a couple possessions where they got blocked 4 or 5 times just in the single possession. I don't know the specific play, but I remember just seeing them trying to go back up with it, and they're just kept getting swatted by Bol and Miles or Mason Plumlee, whichever Plumlee's on this Nuggets team. But definitely made me say, oh geez.
Oh yeah, I think there might be only one Plumlee left in the NBA now, but. You know what? Bol, he's long. He's a shot blocker. Maybe it's not the most embarrassing thing. If you're getting blocked against guards every time you're trying to get a shot up, maybe that'd be a little bit worse.
Well, the inverse is there for Bol. He was trying to get offensive rebounds. Like, he was attacking the rim because he was the biggest guy on the court, like the longest guy, and obviously not the biggest guy width-wise, but he was getting bodied by Chris Boucher. TD had him on him once and just completely ripped the ball from his hands. It was tough to watch Bol. I think he'll have a good NBA career, but yeah, he was getting bullied down low.
Yeah, they got lucky though because Michael Porter Jr. is turning into a phenom in his couple of games, and Bol looks promising as well. They snatched up a couple of good draft picks.
Yeah, for sure. Those guys, obviously Michael Porter Jr. didn't play tonight, but Porter Jr.'s been ridiculous in the bubble. Lots of guys playing well, but finally, the infamous, the one, the only DeMarre Carroll Gold Star Award, Ryker, and in this one, I don't really know who to give it to. The boys played well. Looking at the box,
well,
Ben
just
kind of chilled.
You know who we can give it to? Well,
who?
It's actually not obvious at all. I don't know why I framed it that way. We could give it to the Lakers because the Raptors tonight, they would have solidified, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the best record in the second best record in the NBA. So if the Raptors make it to the finals, they technically get the home court advantage again, second year in a row.
Hey, actually, I believe that's true. I don't know if the Lakers play any more games, but I think we're second in the league right now. Shout out the Raptors if we get back-to-back years with home court advantage in the finals, but that's looking extremely far ahead, and I don't know how much the home court advantage helps in these games, but I don't know, the noise coming in from the crowd, it might amp the guys up. Do you think there's any advantage for home court in this playoffs, Ryker?
I think so. I mean, you can hear that they do play typical, like, those sounds when something goes right for the home team or it goes wrong for the away team. I think that those are familiar sounds if you were playing in a regular game with fans. And so that maybe even just the familiarity of it might help a little bit. I'd have to see the stats on if it's made a difference now in the bubble, but I think even that and just having cheers or the noise of cheers when something goes your way might subconsciously help your game. Maybe I'm just crazy. Maybe maybe I have completely off the mark. I don't know, but I think it's good nonetheless. Raptors, second best team in the NBA, technically the best team in the NBA. We know it in our hearts. We don't need the scores to tell us that, but that's it.
Yeah, it doesn't even matter because the Lakers weren't going to make the finals anyway. The Blazers are clearly going to get that W. But let us know what you guys think. Are you guys excited for the playoffs? Obviously, the Raptors start their series against the Brooklyn Nets next week. I believe the first game's Monday. Schedule's up on our Instagram, so definitely check that out. You're the best to make this far. Check out the Twitter, the Instagram, all the cool stuff. Ryker, any last words?
That's it, Ben. Playoffs Monday. Cheers.
Woo!